The masked hero, Caleb Budd, dresses into a peculiar costume and positions himself outside his target location, but doesn't look too thrilled with his mission. He tries to talk himself out of the job at the very last moment, but even then, his boss tells him he's perfect for it. It turns out that Caleb is supposed to investigate some suspicious experiments, but he's seemingly caught by a gang of goons standing right behind him. The goons try to act tough and bust the hero for breaking in on their operation, while also ridiculing him for his white outfit. However, they also refer to him as a superhero, and it seemingly does the trick, as his armband starts glowing. Caleb decides to give these goons a taste of his powers, so he puts 2 of them to sleep simply by saying it. However, the others are unaffected, so the goon leader orders his subordinates to attack Caleb with their own powers. It turns out to be a tough task for our hero, as the villains use fire moves to intimidate him. Luckily, Caleb is able to pull off some moves and he evades the flames, much to the amusement of his counter-opposition. He puts up as much of a fight as he can, but it's of no use as he bumps into a bulky goon who puts him in a chokehold. However, Caleb has many more tricks up his sleeve, as he simply transforms into a squirrel and makes his way out of the villain's grasps. The goon leader is visibly annoyed, so he orders his flame goon to finish off Caleb with a knockout punch. However, Caleb manages to give his opponent the slip and is able to avoid all the flaming punches with his sick moves. He manages to fool around long enough for the flame goon to run out of steam, and he uses this chance to punch her in the face. The flame goon tries to counter his move with a punch of her own, but her fists break upon attacking Caleb, whose body appears to be as hard as steel. The bulky goon decides to step in again and grabs Caleb from behind, but our hero manages to heat himself up to the point where he's able to force his way out of his opponent's arms. With the advantage on his side now, Caleb brutally kicks the bulky goon in his precious area, thus easily knocking him down. He adds a cherry to the top of his cake by sliding under the bulky goon and making his way to the flame goon, only to knock her down with a punch as well. Suddenly, the bulky goon stands tall and presents himself to Caleb for another fight, so our hero gleefully obliges with multiple punches and kicks. However, his moves don't seem to work on the bulky goon, who's able to absorb all his blows while also having a smile on his face. Caleb starts to tire down, but he can't give up just yet, so he activates his super speed and starts running circles around his opponent. With the power of momentum on his side, he leaps and generates a lightning punch that he unleashes upon the bulky goon. He manages to knock out his opponent while also striking a pose, and then he's presented with the goon leader. Caleb gets ready to resume the battle, but the leader simply brushes him aside by saying he's not worth his time. As confusing as this might sound, the leader accomplishes his mission because this was just a distraction to allow multiple future tech drivers to drive away with the secret goods. The leader walks away feeling victorious over what he's just accomplished, and even taunts Caleb's boss because he used to mess around with him as well. Caleb's boss radios in on him to ask for an update, and that's when Caleb tells him that the experiments being conducted by Future Tech were essentially to grant normal people with superpowers. This is a great cause for concern, so Caleb is immediately instructed to do something he really doesn't want to do: activate Project S. Now, we're taken to a flashback where we see Caleb nervously entering a party with his friend, Guy. He's feeling anxious because he doesn't really know anyone at this party, but Guy reassures him that he's going to have a good time because some of his friends think he's cute. However, this only adds to the pressure, and Caleb acts awkward. Regardless, he's dragged inside the party against his will, and then he has a look at the scene. Guy wants to introduce him to some people, but our hero believes this is the worst idea he could have come up with at the moment. Guy doesn't really care because he knows there's no other way his buddy's ever going to get out of his comfort zone and find his special someone. He goes to ask the bartender for a drink, and then Caleb says he doesn't want it. However, Guy says the drink isn't for Caleb, but for the girl named Kate, who's seemingly choking another boy with rage in her eyes. Guy tells our hero that Kate's had her eye on him for a while, and then he makes a quick introduction between the both of them. Kate switches from angry warrior to cute partygoer as she's excited to see Caleb at this party. Guy leaves the honors to our hero, but he messes it up by slipping and accidentally punching Kate in the arm. This is all it takes for her to switch back to her scary girl mode, and she rebukes Caleb for being weird. Our hero tries to apologize and explain himself, but it's useless because Kate explains that she has a second-degree black belt in mixed martial arts and won't hesitate for a moment before using it on him. She angrily walks away while Caleb wonders where things went wrong. Of course, Guy has just watched everything in the background, and he scolds Caleb for messing up so badly. He quickly realizes that Kate might not have been the best choice for Caleb, so he tries to help our hero make friends with some of the other party people. As expected, Caleb's shyness gets the better of him, and he doesn't improve on his interaction with Kate. Despite our hero's obvious social awkwardness, Guy refuses to give up and goes to look for some more friends. Caleb simply slams his head on the table and complains about a headache. That's when a shady boy in a hood offers him a solution to his pain. Caleb is intrigued, so he asks the boy what he's got for him. It turns out to be a bunch of painkillers, so our hero is a bit skeptical about it, but the boy reassures him that these pills are completely legal. With nothing better to do, Caleb takes one of the pills and gulps it down. Guy suddenly comes to the scene, and this serves as the boy's cue to leave. He seems to already know Caleb's full name, which is shady enough as it is. But then Guy reveals that what Caleb just popped isn't over the counter, but something completely else. Our hero isn't able to come up with a reasonable excuse as to why he trusted a random stranger with such ease. Regardless, Guy introduces him to the host of the party, Travis. Caleb makes an awkward introduction, but Travis eases his nerves by cracking a joke using his own name as a pun. However, he also doesn't seem to know the shady boy giving out pills, so it makes Caleb feel a little stupid about what just happened. Suddenly, he feels a surge and starts to feel uneasy, which makes Guy and Travis a bit worried for him. However, Caleb maintains that he's fine, so Travis suggests watching a movie together. Unfortunately, the pills start to act up, and Caleb begins to feel a bit woozy. Not wanting to take any risks, Guy decides to cut the night short for him and Caleb, so he bids goodbye to Travis. Caleb passes out, and suddenly wakes up inside his own dorm. Guy tells him about what happened at Travis's party, and then Caleb says that his head is a little better now. However, Guy hasn't asked him this question yet, so he gets a little confused. Our hero wants to rest for a bit, but he's late for class, so he rushes to the lecture and makes it on time. However, he forgets his backpack and his notebooks in the process, so he has to rely on his memory to remember all the notes. Somehow, Caleb is able to hear everyone's thoughts in class, and it drives him crazy, so he screams at them and asks them to shut up. To his surprise, the teacher tells him that nobody's talking, even while he can still hear the voices in his head. This is a bit too much for him to handle, but then he remembers that he was able to read Guy's mind earlier as well. Caleb starts to connect the dots, so he leaves the class in a rush. He goes back to Guy and asks him to think a random thought, much to his confusion. Guy is shocked when Caleb is able to say everything he's thinking, but weirdly bursts out laughing when our hero suggests he can read minds. Caleb is frustrated and proves to Guy that he's being serious, so it makes Guy wonder what to do. Our hero laments that he's unable to turn off these powers, so Guy eventually agrees to help him out. Days pass by, but the duo doesn't make any progress at all, and it makes Caleb impatient. With no other choice, Guy decides to give his roomie a taste of his most graphic thoughts and gives him a warning before beginning. Caleb has to hear some of the most disgusting things known to mankind, but the strategy surprisingly works and he can't hear Guy's thoughts anymore. This gives them cause for celebration, but when Guy asks Caleb to turn his powers back on, he's unable to do so and laughs nervously. This leads to another grueling session of days, after which Guy begins to doubt Caleb's abilities. However, this somehow triggers our hero's abilities and he can read minds once again. Guy is a little conscious because of what he just said, but is still happy for his buddy who is finally able to control his powers. However, the exercise doesn't just stop there, because now, Guy wants to know if Caleb is able to communicate to others through his powers of telepathy. This gives our hero some interesting thoughts about mind control, and he comments about making Guy do the dishes. Simply thinking about it activates his powers, and Guy is put into a trance, so he walks away to do the dishes. His mind is also shown to be completely blank, much to Caleb's surprise. He runs after his buddy and tries his best to snap him out of it, and finally succeeds when Guy is almost done with the dishes. Caleb apologizes because he didn't know he could do such a thing, but Guy lets him off the hook for now. Life is seemingly back to normal for the roomies, and one day they discuss eating burrito burros. That's when they run into Travis, who's just gotten out of his art class. The trio decide to have lunch together and suggest a cafe to Caleb, but he's distracted when he sees some kids thinking out a plan to rob a bank. He's snapped out of his powers by his buddies, but he tells them exactly what he just saw in the minds of the robbers. Guy believes Caleb and tells him to report the incident, but Travis is at a complete loss for words and asks the boys what they're talking about. Guy and Caleb are put on the spot when Travis confronts them about how Caleb was able to hear such a grand plan from some kids who weren't even talking. In a moment of desperation, our hero uses his mind control powers to erase Travis's memory, and it works, much to Guy's surprise. Caleb changes the topic and takes the boys to the cafe for lunch, but he remains determined to stop the robbers from their evil plan. He decides to talk to one of the kids named Reggie and casually talks to him about a party at night. Of course, this is just a distraction, and Caleb uses his powers to learn the robbers are planning to rob the bank at 3 a.m. He rushes to Guy with this new information and suggests alerting the cops under an anonymous tip. However, Guy is upset with Caleb for using his powers to wipe out Travis's memories, and he taunts him about it. Our hero doesn't really think much of it, and it makes Guy even more upset. He starts to doubt whether Caleb has erased his memories as well, so our hero reassures him that he hasn't done this. However, Guy loses his temper and lashes out at Caleb by telling him that he's betrayed the trust of a friend. This makes our hero panic, and he says that he really didn't want Travis to know about his powers. Seeing him in such a vulnerable state makes Guy a little more conscious, so he lets out a sigh and tells Caleb he shouldn't do this again. He does maintain that he's still furious about what happened, because he's not in Caleb's shoes right now. Guy decides to get back to the task at hand and asks Caleb what he learned about the robbery from Reggie and his gang. Our hero repeats that the Plaza Bank is going to be targeted at 3 a.m. tonight, so Guy acts fast and pulls out his phone to alert the cops. Caleb wants to test out his powers and their limits, so he focuses for a bit and is able to hear the cop's voice from the other end of the phone. While this might be a great achievement for him, Guy is left feeling a little disappointed because it turns out that there have been several anonymous tips regarding a robbery at night. He maintains that his source is credible and that the cops should specifically send their squads to the Plaza Bank, but it's like talking to a brick wall, as the cop tells him they can't take his tips seriously without any evidence. The call gets disconnected, and this makes Caleb a bit worried, because he doesn't want to leave this to chance. Guy asks him for an alternative solution, and it seems that our hero has an intricate plan in his mind, but it doesn't sound very appealing to Guy. The end. Like, share, and subscribe if you want to see more content here. See you soon!